first of all, there are lots of different types of screams. So you can do one that's more shout oriented, or one that's more distorted, or higher pitch, the same kind of thing, but higher, something like that.
Hello, and welcome to the Finding the Unicorn in You podcast. I'm Dr. Jaime G. Raygoza, a life coach, psychologist, and your host. Join me on a journey to inspire and transform ordinary lives into something special. Here, we celebrate the unicorns, those who choose not to follow the ordinary conventional path, but rather chase after their dreams and choose the path less taken, making them truly unique. Together, we'll explore powerful life coaching techniques and hear from special guests who embody the spirit of unicorns in their own way. What are we waiting for? Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Finding the Unicorn in You. Today, I have an inspirational speaker, author, performing artist, and mind-body empowerment coach. She's also known as the Inner Demon Crusher and is known worldwide as the front woman of the metal band Carcasa. I'll let her talk more about herself, so without further ado, welcome Lilia Bogoeva.
Yes, thank you so much, Jaime. Thank you. It is a pleasure being here. Yeah, so all that is correct. I help people discover their mind and body harmony. So aligning their inner resources, mind, body, and soul to achieve personal empowerment, to crush all their inner demons and live in freedom. So to me, what I consider inner demons, quote unquote, are those nagging inner struggles that follow you around through different life stages and different places and creating all these negative patterns, anything from self-defeating thoughts to addictive spirals to just being the type of person who you don't want to be. And what inner demons do is they take you away from your true, authentic self. Basically, they create a different version of you that isn't the real you, in other words. So by cutting all that away, tapping into your God-given mind, body, and soul, it could really find who you're meant to be.
I think a lot of us tend to have inner demons inside, and they can manifest in different things. Depression, they can be imposter syndrome, self-doubt. What are some things that you recommend people do to fight those inner demons?
Yeah, there are so many ways. My particular specialty is harnessing the power of music and creative arts and mind-body awareness. So that is my approach. I know that qualified therapists can help you a lot with the analysis of your childhood and figuring out where all of those tendencies come from, given generational traumas or brain chemistry, and neurologists can help you with that. So there are so many ways, but me in particular, I harness the power of basically movement, music, and mindset, your creativity, and how to use your mind-body connection for the utmost self-empowerment. So what I mean by that, for example, I am a musician. I'm the front woman of metal band Carcasa. I sing and play guitar in that band. And what I mean by helping people use the power of music and creative art, not necessarily that you have to already be an expert musician. We do music therapy type activities like analyzing songs that you like, figuring out, okay, you relate to this song. What do you like about it? How do you relate to it? What about yourself did you learn from listening to the song? So discussing song lyrics, moving to music, feeling how music can energize your body, energize your mind, help inspire that self-confidence in you, or also how music can provoke self-reflection. Because a lot of the time, we do find out things about ourselves by listening to a song that we relate to. Similar effect can happen with movies as well, or reading books, or even hearing someone else's biography. And I do incorporate mixed modalities in what I do. I'm also really big on using functional fitness in the right ways as well, because I've also been a personal trainer for a pretty long time, since 2014. Yeah, 2014 was the first time I got my first personal training license. And yeah, I get really annoyed by how much the fitness world becomes about cutting calories and lose weight really fast, look a certain way, either lose weight or perk up your bubble butt and stuff like that. I just don't like seeing it become about vanity. I also I have a big pet peeve when us ambitious, entrepreneurial, career oriented types feel the need to totally sacrifice self care for achievement, because in the long run, sacrificing self care doesn't help you achieve anything except for self destruction. So I also help people find those small yet extremely effective ways to take care of their minds and bodies without feeling like you need to sacrifice a lot of your productivity. So basically, like time management, productivity strategies, and mindset shifts as well.
I completely love that. And I think that you can learn a lot from just like analyzing what song you're relating to right now. I know sometimes we get attached. I just have the fondest memory of, and this will say a lot about my personality, about the movie Frozen. When it came
Yeah.
out, I was so attached by the Let It Go song, and I was going through my own internal turmoil of concealing who I was and my identity, and I ended up crying so much during the movie when that song came out, and I was just, like, playing it on repeat and just crying, but years later, I realized that song had a lot to do with what I was going through at the time, so it resonated a lot with me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have the same reaction to Let It Go, to be honest. Also, like from the newer Frozen Into the Unknown was also really cool because that's how
Yes.
when I was creating this new brand, the Inner Demon Crusher. I went through a lot of renditions because you know what? I have been an athlete and musician for a really long time. I started out in sports and dance since I was 5 years old. When I was in my late teens, at 17, I picked up metal guitar playing. Then by 20 years old, I nailed the vocals, doing like higher and stuff like that, screening stuff. And the weird way that I nailed down the vocals was because it started out as me having this sudden spiral descent into extreme depression, had my traumas come back, had a lot of re experiencing of uh, the hardest things that I went through when I was younger, mainly when I was dealing with eating disorder, anorexia, and all the physical and mental health problems that came with that. Being really fearful of my life at some points, feeling like I was going to die. So that those kinds of re-experiences came back to me all of a sudden right when I was 20 years old and starting to take music a lot more seriously because I was studying music in school in the college actually for music. And then one day I just had this flashback of myself just like screaming in genuine agony. And I was like, what if I could do that on command? I've always heard these, I was hearing these death metal songs and I couldn't replicate the vocals. I thought, oh, I'm too little or whatever. I can't do it. Then all of a sudden I was like, okay, watch. If I really tap into, put myself back in that situation where I really was screaming in fear, pain, and agony, I can actually replicate the perfect death metal scream on command. So that it was so weird that I actually had some quote fun with traumatic re-experiencing because I found something awkwardly amusing to do with it. And for me, that suddenly blurred the lines between pleasure and pain. I could basically make friends with the darkness and actually find something I genuinely enjoyed within something that I really hated experiencing. And that was such a huge turning point for me. I feel like that's what made me able to actually get out of the depression descent fairly quickly. I spent like, I would say 4 months that I felt like I was in a deep, debilitating depression where my body wasn't even functioning well. Like my digestive system wasn't working right. I was extremely exhausted all the time, and my dreams were about death. And I couldn't concentrate and all that. It was like 4 months. And then for the next another 6, 8 months or so, slowly getting back from 80 back up to 100%. But yeah, that experience of realizing I could make the perfect metal scream by digging into my painful re experiences gave me a lot of strength and courage. And from there, I realized that I was not interested in the technical musicianship, like being the best guitar shredder in the world. I was interested in exploring the physical and emotional aspects of music. Well, the catch is I didn't know quite how to best do that because that was back in late 2012, early 2013. And I did a lot of things. I did experimental performance art where I was playing guitar and dancing or doing acrobatics around it at the same time and portraying a character. I had a hard time promoting the acro guitar ninja. So then I just stepped into just being in my band Carcasa and teaching music lessons. And then eventually my brain synthesized all this stuff like crush inner demons, live in freedom through the power of music, movement, and mentality. So that's where I stepped into the unknown and move forward with that.
I completely love that. And I think that even that exercise that you were saying where you are screaming and tapping into that, there's like scream therapy that I've seen people do where they just like yell as loud as they can, as deep as they can, and really let all those frustrations out, all that anxiety, all that stress. And for a moment, you just release it. And that can be really healthy too. So is that something that you implement?
Yes, well, I do it in a really good way because I'm also a vocal coach. I actually teach people the technique of using their voice. So every time someone comes to me with it's like a chicken or egg situation, right? Some people want to learn how to death metal scream for their favorite metal songs. Other people want to just release that tension and they like the idea of using their voice and using music because they relate to it, but don't really know how to approach it. So I combine actually the technique of screaming safely without ruining your throat with the emotional satisfaction of that cathartic release. So I don't do just the kind of catharsis that's out of control because that could actually be damaging. Especially if you're screaming, you could really do serious permanent damage to your vocal cords if you don't do it properly, because there is a technique to that. So I help people use the right techniques so that you have a sense of self control within that satisfying emotional release.
Do you mind providing a mini session?
First of all, there are lots of different types of screams. So you can do one that's more shout oriented, or one that's more distorted, or higher pitch, the same kind of thing, but higher, something like that. But yeah, I think that the easiest one for me was that low guttural one, like. So what I do there is make sure to open up your throat, open the throat like it's a wind tunnel. Also have a lot of space in your mouth. Or raise the roof of your mouth, drop your jaw really well, make that nice round O sound, and make sure you're breathing in through your diaphragm because the voice is really triggered by the breath. So it's very important. Any type of singing, whether it is death metal screaming, Broadway is also really big on that breath support. Basically, for anything you do with your voice, I would say the combination of breath support and opening your throat is really essential to making sure you can make the sound safely. And because you can make the sound safely, then you can have that fun of being able to use your voice as an emotional healing experience. So I do think that the technique and the emotional satisfaction have to go together.
I am very impressed with all of the noises you can make and the different octaves. And I've always, because that's one of my main concerns when I was listening to death metal and like in high school or just heavy metal is that, oh, that must be a really big strain on your vocal cords.
Yeah, it is very important to find the sound that works for you because you can actually damage your voice on any style, even pop or Broadway or opera. Because if you're trying to make it too artificial, let's say a lot of people damage their voices by trying to replicate Broadway singers because they have that loud belt. And if you don't have the right breath support opening up your throat, then you can strain the crap out of your voice doing that as well. Same with opera, going extremely high pitch, that could damage it too, or singing too low, like anything outside of your natural range. So it's important when I help people do is actually explore the best sound for you as a person. And it goes hand in hand with the type of music that you enjoy. Basically, we try to make the right tone that works for you physically and that also helps you express what you want to express. And yeah, just in the past couple years, found out that I am more interested in music therapy than in just musicianship. But I do have an approach where I combine the technique with the therapeutic elements because you're very limited in how much you can express yourself through music if you have no technique. At the same time, you also can express yourself if you make it all about the technique. Because music can also get very mathematical too.
Yeah, and I'm very fascinated by it, and I'm geeking out over what you're doing because I completely love it. Just because I love music and I love helping people, and I think you combined them in a very nice, like, little niche. With the people that you're helping with, is there a specific thing that this would be more effective, like, the strategy would be more effective to help them through? Like, what are some potential problems or things that people can go through that this technique would help them get out of it?
Yeah, so anything from emotional turmoil, like we were talking about the post traumatic stress disorders and depression, anxiety, but also neurodivergent conditions like ADHD, autism, dyslexia. One way that I found out that I was really interested in using vocal training for therapeutic methods is that way back in early 2017, I was actually doing some academic tutoring on the side, just for some extra money on the side of my music. And I got assigned to a boy who had dyslexia. I didn't know much about dyslexia, so I looked it up. Okay, it has to do with the fact that they have trouble hearing the phonemes and language sounds. I was like, okay, if I incorporate some elements of my vocal training into it, I would pronounce the words in a way so that he could hear the language sounds more clearly. I could tell what types of sounds he was having trouble hearing. I would do some similar exercises with him that were related to what I do to help singers with their enunciation. And his mom said that the year before that, he just made no progress at all. But the year that I tutored him, he made a huge amount of progress. And I was just seeing it right before my eyes. Progress he made from the beginning to the end. And similar situation with kids, teens, and adults who are on the spectrum of autism or who have ADHD or social anxiety. Music does a lot to help them build confidence in themselves, actually channel their unusual traits, like their um, differences, basically into something that's really rewarding and turn that into strength. And I do incorporate a large element from the body awareness into that. So that's what's always made my approach very unique. Like sometimes when a person is having trouble with the posture, like staying upright or the breath capacity, I also recommend a holistic method, like what kinds of physical conditioning you could do to increase that breath capacity, the core strength. If someone is having trouble with their hands on the guitar or piano, how to physically strengthen your hands and shoulders. And also, like nutritionally, especially if you're singing, what you eat can somewhat affect your throat. It's like what to eat or what to avoid eating shortly before a vocal session. So I really have a holistic mind body approach to everything that I help people with.
I completely love that, and I was about to use the same word. Like, it sounds like you're a very holistic approach to solving problems, and I think pretty much anybody can that's going through any specific problem can probably benefit from this.
Yeah, like I do also have a strong passion helping people with overcome body insecurities and eating disorders because for me, I feel like that was maybe one of my original inner demons, as you can say. I feel like the experience of going through the anorexia made me really depressed, which then uh, over the years accumulated to this complex trauma, which then made me go back into depression. And then sometimes not knowing how to interpret that, I would wrongly take the other kids and young adult, very knowledgeable advice that was not knowledgeable at all, which was a lot of things like, oh, just don't think about it. Or if you just keep yourself busy, you won't be bothered at all by no emotional wounds or anything like that. And it doesn't work. That which you do not acknowledge is what controls you. ironically, the harder you try to keep that quote unquote self control by denying your emotional wounds, the more that actually controls you because you're so unaware of it. So, yeah, whether it is eating disorders or body insecurities or depression or anxiety, I think it's important that we acknowledge that. I've sometimes used drugs and alcohol to help cope with all the crazy confusion that came from all of that for a lot of reasons. Sometimes I was trying to artificially enhance myself. Oh, I need to keep busy all the time, but the depression is making me tired. So to not be tired, I'm going to take the right stimulants, like what I can snort or what pill I can take. And then I get too crazy, then I need to come down with alcohol or depressant. And I'm like, over the years, I just learned the best ways to use mind body awareness, artistic creativity, and time management and problem solving strategies to do all that naturally. And mainly to quit listening to ignorant people and quit getting dragged down to a lower level of understanding and beaten with experience. So, yeah, I do feel like being able to use the body as an instrument of emotional healing helps us to appreciate our body for how it helps us and escape from all of that body image elitism kind of stuff that we see.
I completely agree. And like what you said, I've worked with several individuals throughout my life where I see that very common of self-medicating because that's all they know and they're not really seeking professional help. So by the time they do, they've learned all these bad habits on things that are destroying their body one way or another because that's the only thing that they knew how because their friends were the ones who said, "Oh yeah, drink a lot of alcohol so you can get more calm." And it's just like all these like self-indulging things, but there's more holistic and natural ways of being able to do similar things without damaging your body in the process.
Yeah, and even sometimes people really need like an alternative or a way to reduce medication because even prescription medications, when overused, can be harmful or when they're used too much as a substitute. The classic case when a parent says, okay, my child has ADHD, so we'll just get them a Ritalin or Adderall prescription and not actually try to teach the child techniques to manage their symptoms and not actually look for ways to channel their neurodivergence into strengths. Instead, just take your Ritalin, take your Adderall, and there we go. We don't do anything else. I see the usefulness of medication. I'm not against it, but at the same time, I don't think it should be the first resort or the only thing that we do. 'Cause I actually had a horrible experience with the depression meds when I was in my early teens. I had a psychiatrist prescribe a medication that in later years I found out it was contraindicated, in other words, strongly discouraged from young people with eating disorders and a history of migraines, because that was one big triggering factor for me. I get a lot of migraines, and the medication they prescribed triggered more migraines while I was already brutally underweight. I was already hearing these daily stories of how horrible my death will be because you have this eating disorder and it's going to waste away your body. So then I would do what I'm told, taking this medication, which triggered more migraines, triggered more vomiting, not being able to eat, more weight loss. And then I felt like that crushed my trust in authority figures and trusting that another human being would help me or save me. It was like a blessing and a curse because on the one hand, I was really discouraged from life. I felt like the world would be better without me. I felt like my parents are having so much turmoil dealing with me right now. I felt like I should end my life and I actually planned to do that. Then I would hear this voice telling me, just embrace the loneliness now, be yourself, do what is completely true to you, and someday you will do something that the world will value. So it was like, I want to see that. I want to see that thing that I can do that the world will value. Because I was feeling like I was not able to do anything valuable to others. So then that combined with my mistrust in just doing what another person says drove me to actually listen to the crazy voices in my head and tap into my authenticity and heal in a way that is true to me. So I feel like that which makes us struggle and feel discouraged can also be very empowering if we just translate it in a different language for ourselves.
That makes sense, and I'm glad that I didn't get to that point where we wouldn't even be able to have this conversation today. So I'm glad that things worked out and you took care of yourself and you advocated for yourself, and it sounded like you did a lot of the internal work so that you weren't relying only on others, because I've had similar situations where I've been given medication knowing that it was just gonna shut me up instead of actually finding out what was wrong with me. So they would just give me, like, different things. So I ended up refusing, doing my own research, trying more holistic methods, and I ended up getting better. So I I applaud you for putting yourself forward and doing that, because most people sometimes they just fall into getting addicted to some of these medications that are slowly killing them versus making them better.
Yeah, exactly. I really do believe that our priority should be making the best use of our natural, God given body, mind, and soul. Understand that medications and other treatments can assist sometimes. There is a place for that, but I do think that our inner resources should be our priority, as well as fostering relationships with others. Like we mentioned, the social influences can be really damaging or really helpful depending on who you're talking to.
Exactly, and just knowing, like you said, it could be a supplement. Taking certain medications does help, but doing it as a supplement with other techniques. For example, I have ADHD and I'm on Adderall, but that is not the only thing that I do. I did teach myself more time management techniques, more hyper focusing techniques, things, knowing what my triggers are and then learning how to cope with them. So I'm not only reliant on the medication, because if it was up to my psychiatrist, he was like, "Just, well, just up your medication until you're like this walking zombie and you're non-functional." But that's not the whole point. The point is for us to still be a function to society and being able to help. So learning different techniques along with having the chemical balance to be a better version of yourself, not just like a zombie.
Because a few days ago, I watched a documentary on lobotomies, which were exactly for that, turning people into zombies. We've certainly made a lot of progress in both physical and mental health since the days of sticking ice picks in people's eyeballs. Of course, everything can always be improved. There is always some room for anything getting better. I do think that my experience with the band Carcasa has been another one of those things where there's equal parts pleasure and pain involved in it. Because, yeah, I feel like I am not a person who has natural talents. I feel like I build on my skills from the ground up through practice. So, if anything, if I have one talent, it's the talent of practicing and working. Talent of work ethic, I think that's legit. The drummer of my band, who's also my husband, by the way, we met doing music and then we stuck together, basically. And he's naturally talented at drums from what I see. Like he doesn't practice nearly as much as I do. Yeah, he just remembers the songs. Yet at the same time, he's nowhere near as good at learning new musical skills. Why? Because he relies too much on that natural God given talent of playing the drums themselves. I was literally asking God one time, like, why do you drive me towards music without giving me the natural gift of music? I was at one point during the pandemic when we didn't have those shows going on, I didn't have that outlet of feeling fulfilled by playing my music for other people. So I was starting to lose a lot of my passion for it. I was thinking maybe I should just quit music and go back to fitness and sports. But it turns out that God did not bless my route of quitting. I just kept on getting pushed back into music, basically. And I was like, God, why do you keep propelling me towards music without giving me that natural gift for it? Every single new song that I learn is a challenge. Every new musical skill is hard. My own husband is getting frustrated and impatient with me when I can't catch on to something as quickly as he does. We can have these really heated moments because of it. And I realized that it is about using music to empower people overall. That the standards of what we consider a quote good musician, that's all man made. That's all just things that people decide, oh, now I think it'd be cool if guitarists can shred really fast. It'd be cool if singers can hit these really high notes. It'd be cool if you can sound like Elsa. But all that is just the opinion of people. Really, the value in music is in the personal growth we get from it. So, in other words, God's answer was, thou shalt just do it. And I said, yes, sir. And that's about it.
Two things with what you just said. We all have some gifts that we're really good at. For example, you mentioned that you're really good at picking up things and then staying and pulling it through.
Yeah.
Versus, like you said, your husband, he's more of a he'll give up after the going gets tough. So you have more endurance that may be naturally given to you. Versus with him, he may be able to pick up one or two things and then master it right away. But you have the endurance to adapt and get more skills. Every one of us has different strengths and weaknesses. For me, I am really good with like technical numbers and like formulas and Excel stuff. I just get that like really quick. Like you teach it to me once and I memorize it. But when it comes to like emotions, I'm overly sensitive. So if I'm even told something slightly discomforting, I can go to the corner and start crying. We all have our strengths and weaknesses, but it's learning how to complement our strengths and weaknesses with others that complement ours. So building our community so that we can support and thrive together.
Yeah, that's what I feel like me and my husband do in the band Carcasa because, he has his certain set of strengths in it, which is mainly geared toward rhythm and drum beats. And he's also pretty good at the just straight up promotional aspects of music, whereas I'm better at the emotional expression, the storytelling, and also adapting to different styles of it. So I do feel like we complement each other very well. He's more straightforward and I'm more creative about it. And like over the years, I've just also come to terms with certain features that I do and don't have. What kinds of weaknesses are worth compensating for? Whereas where is it more valuable to play to my strengths? Where can I compromise and all of that stuff? So I feel like we have this good balance of healthy conflict, but also working together.
Now, we're at the point of the podcast where I ask you the last question, which is about unicorns. Seeing on any topic that we talked about today, unicorns are individuals that are rare to find and I feel are unique and they embrace the uniqueness to be the best version of themselves and they show it to the world. So, in your mind and in your own words, what is one thing that a person can do to start their unicorn journey?
I would say find the best ways to express yourself. So figure out what you want to express about yourself and the best ways of doing that. Also, listening to your body, really hone into your body's cues, understand how certain emotions make your body feel. That makes you so much more aware of when you're starting to get stressed or depressed. Also, what makes you happy. If you're tuned into how your body feels when you're experiencing pleasure, then you can find those things that make you happy more easily.
Thank you so much. So, if someone wants to get a hold of you, listen to your band, hire you as a coach, how can they do so?
Yeah, so I offer public speaking, inspirational speaking, personal coaching programs, also performances with my band Carcasa, and I'm also making a book to demonstrate my story, but not a regular book, a comic book, because I'm a visual shower more than a teller. So you can find out info about all that. My website, liliademoncrusher.com. That's all one word. My band is carcasa.com, Karkaza.com. That's my music. I'm also on most of the major social medias like Facebook, Lilia, the Inner Demon Crusher, also YouTube. Facebook and YouTube both have Lilia, the Inner Demon Crusher as a channel. On TikTok, I'm just at Lilia Demon Crusher. On Instagram, I'm just my name at Lilia_Bogoeva.
And for listeners, as a reminder, if you go to my website at raygoza-consulting.com, you'll see Lilia on there on the Unicorn Wall of Fame with all of the links that she just mentioned and a summary of this episode. So other reminders, episodes come out every Friday at 7 a.m. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. Lilia, thank you so much for this amazing interview. And any last words for the audience before we go?
Crush your inner demons and live in freedom.
Amazing. All right, everyone. I hope everybody has an amazing day. And until next time. Thank you for listening to the Finding the Unicorn in You podcast. I truly appreciate you listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode and gained valuable insights. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review on your favorite platform. Keep listening, keep learning, and keep growing. Until next time, this is Dr. Jaime G. Raygoza signing off.